من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم والسابقون الاولون من المہاجرین والانصار والذین اتبعوهم بإحسان رضی اللہ عنہم ورضوا عنہ وأعد لهم جنات تجری تحتها الانہار خالدین فیہا ابدا ذلک الفوز العظیم. وقال تعالى وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات ليستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم وليمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم وليبدلنهم من بعد خوفهم أمنا يعبدونني لا يشركون بي شيئا ومن كفر بعد ذلك فأولئك هم الفاسقون. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لكل نبي رفيق ورفيقي في الجنة عثمان بن عفان. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام عن عبد الرحمن بن سمرة قال جاء عثمان إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ب1000 دينار في كمه حين جهز جيش العسرة فنثرها في حجره فرأيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقلبها في حجره ويقول ما ضر عثمان ما عمل بعد اليوم ما ضر عثمان ما عمل بعد اليوم مرتين. وعن انس رضی اللہ عنہ قال لما امر رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم ببیعۃ الرضوان كان عثمان رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم الى مکہ فبايع الناس فقال رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم ان عثمان في حاجة الله وحاجة رسوله فضرب بإحدى يديه على الأخرى فكانت يد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لعثمان خيرا من أيديهم لأنفسهم. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام ألا أستحيي ممن يستحيي منه الملائكة. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام أبو بكر في الجنة عمر في الجنة عثمان في الجنة علي في الجنة. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام يا عثمان إنه لعل الله يقمصك قميصا فإن أرادوك على خلعه فلا تخلعه لهم. صدق اللہ مولانا العظیم وصدق رسولہ النبی الکریم ونحن على ذلك من الشاہدین والشاکرین والحمد للہ رب العالمین. We are going over the seerah of Khulafai Rashidin. We have talked about Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu in the previous episodes and Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu. We move on to Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiyallahu anhu. Usman Ghani radiyallahu anhu is the third Khalifa among the Khulafai Rashidin, and he is among the first to embrace Islam. He was born in the year 6 after the year of elephants, meaning 6 years younger than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when he died, he was at the age of 82. So Sayyiduna Usman Ghani radiyallahu anhu is born in Taif. His father his lineage goes like this: Uthman ibn Affan ibn Abil As ibn Umayyah ibn Abd Shams ibn Abd Munaf. And his mother is Arwa bint Qurayz ibn Rabi'a ibn Habib ibn Abd Shams ibn Abd Munaf. So maybe his mother had gone to Taif and he was born in the area of Taif. His family and everyone lived in Makkah Mukarramah. His lineage connects with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at Abd Munaf, meaning after 4 of his among his parents, the 5th is Abd Munaf, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam lineage also comes to Abd Munaf, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam lineage is Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib ibn Hashim ibn Abd Munaf. So Abd Munaf is where they connect and join. And his mother also joins at Habib ibn Abd Shams ibn Abd Munaf. Sayyiduna Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu's youth, there is not much known about it. However, we know that Sayyiduna Usman grew up to be one of the few who could read and write in the city of Makkah Mukarramah. He was there were only a handful of people who could read and write, and Usman was among those who could read and write. And that is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after Nabuwwat and Hijrat, would sometimes call him to write wahi, and he would note down. So he is among those who are katibeen wahi, who used to write the wahi for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu grew up in Makkah Mukarramah, and from his early age, he was a very noble personality. He was very respected. He was very bahaya, modest, very bashful, and it is said that Hazrat Sayyiduna Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was very modest, even before the time of Islam when he is growing up. And in Makkah Mukarramah, the society is involved in sins, and sin is not taken as sin. In fact, sins are taken as virtue and good value. For example, drinking. Many youth and young would drink, but Usman grew up, he always hated and disliked alcohol. People used to think that a person who doesn't drink is kanjus, he's bakhil, he's saving money. But Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu, in spite of being wealthy and having lots of wealth at his disposal, he never drank any alcohol. He never fornicated. Once he said, Wallahi ma zanaytu fi jahiliyatin wala Islam. Wallah, I have never committed zina, fornication in Jahiliyat, let alone Islam. So he grew up to be a noble person. And just like his family, trade, business, he learned how to trade and do business, and he would go around with his family, because Quraysh mainly depended upon trade and commerce. In Surah Quraysh we read لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشِ إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. They used to go in winter and in summer. One journey in winter, another in summer. So both journeys were taken by the people of Quraysh. Usman would join in them, and he became a very successful young businessman. And people of Quraysh had great love for Usman radiallahu anhu, to the extent that there was a quote among the Quraysh in which they would say, أُحِبُّكَ وَالرَّحْمَنِ حُبَّ قُرَيْشٍ عُثْمَانٍ. By the great merciful, I love you just as Quraysh love Usman. So they held him in high esteem. And Usman radiallahu anhu grew up. As he is growing up, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is blessed with prophethood, Sayyiduna Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu is among the early Muslims. He had good friendship with Sayyiduna Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu had a shop where his friends would come and they would sit and have conversations in the evening. So Talha, Zubair, Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas are among those who, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah are among those who embraced Islam upon the convincing and encouragement provided by Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. So Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu is said to be the fourth person to embrace Islam. One of the, in the beginning, right in the beginning. He says that, when he embraced Islam, he mentioned to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that he says in one place, once his khala, auntie, maternal aunt, Sa'da bint Qurayz, who had become a kahina, meaning sort of a fortune teller. And in those days they used to, believe in them to great extent. So she once said some few words of advice to Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu. Few share couplets, poetry, and then she said, Inna Muhammad ibn Abdullah ja'ahu Jibreel yad'uhu ila Allah. Misbahuhu misbah, qawluhu salah, deenuhu falah, amruhu najah, liqarnihi nitah, dhallat lahu al-bitah, ma yanfa'u as-siyah, law waqa'a al-rimah, wa sallat as-sifah, wa muddat al-rimah. Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Jibreel has come to him, calling to Allah. His light is the light. His word is the good word. His religion is success. His affairs are success. And he will be victorious. The cities will fall under his command. And screaming and wailing will be of no benefit. Even if people were to throw arrows at him, they would fail. Even if they were to draw swords at him, they would fail. She said these few words and then she left. So Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu says, her words, sat in my heart, took place in my heart, and I kept thinking about it. I kept thinking about it until on next day, on Monday, which was the next day, I had a sitting with Abu Bakr Siddiq. So I went to his place, we sat, and I was just thinking about the words of my auntie. And Abu Bakr Siddiq asked me that, Umar, you seem to be, in deep thoughts. Is there anything wrong? I said, nothing wrong. I said, no, I have noticed something is there. And he said, yeah, my khala said these words and I don't understand what she's talking about. And Abu Bakr Siddiq immediately said, yes, your auntie, whatever she said, is true. And Ya Uthman, wallahi innaka la rajulun hazim. ما يخفى عليك الحق من الباطل. هذه الأوثان التي يعبدها قومك أليست حجارا صما لا تسمع ولا تبصر ولا تضر ولا تنفع. O Usman, you are a very wise person, and truth cannot be concealed and hidden from the falsehood. You can differentiate between them. These statues which people worship, are they not stones which are deaf, which cannot hear, which cannot see, which cannot benefit, which cannot harm? And I said, Bala wallahi, innaha lakadhalik. Why not? Definitely they are like that. Then Abu Bakr Siddiq said, Wallahi laqad sadaqatka khalatuka. Your auntie has spoken the truth to you. هذا محمد بن عبد الله قد بعثه الله برسالته إلى جميع خلقه فهل لك أن تأتيه وتسمع منه. Muhammad Rasulullah has been sent by Allah with the message. Do you have desire to go and meet him and listen from him? فقلت نعم فوالله ما كان بأسرع من أن أمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ومعه علي بن أبي طالب يحمل ثوبا لرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We were sat there talking, and Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم passed by with Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Ali ibn Abi Talib was holding a piece of cloth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Abu Bakr Siddiq saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passing by, he immediately stood up and had a secret conversation with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his ears. I don't know what he said, but Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came towards me. He sat with me, and then he started speaking to me, and he said, Ya Uthman, ajib illaha ila jannatihi, fa inni Rasulullah ilayka wa ila jami'i khalqihi. O Usman, respond to Allah towards His Jannah. I am Allah's Rasul to you and to the whole creation. فوالله ما تمالكت حين سمعت قوله أن أسلمت وشهدت أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. His words were simple, but they just penetrated my heart, and I immediately accepted, and I recited the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu embraced Islam, and in the beginning he had to suffer a little bit because his mother Arwa bint Qurayz refused to speak to him, and she left the house and went to another place, and she said, I will not return until Usman denounces his religion. But Usman said, no, that is never going to happen. And Usman radiallahu anhu remained steadfast, and she stayed there for 1 year. But when she saw that it's not having any effect on Usman, it is then that she came back to her house. Usman's uncle Hakam Ibn Abil As, Ibn Umayyah got really angry and he tortured Usman radiallahu anhu. He brought some ropes and tied Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu, and he forced him to abandon the new religion. He said, أَتَرْغَبُ عَنْ مِلَّةِ آبَائِكَ إِلَى دِينٍ مُحْدَثٍ وَاللَّهِ لَا أَحُلُّكَ أَبَدًا حَتَّى تَدَعَ مَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ هَذَا الدِّينِ. Are you turning away from the religion of your forefathers to something new, to a new religion? Wallah, I will not let you lose until you leave and abandon that deen. Usman said, Wallahi la ada'uhu abadan wa la ufariquhu. I have also taken a qasam that by Allah, I will never leave that religion and I will never abandon it. When Hakam saw that Usman is quite firm on his stance, then he also let him loose, and Usman radiallahu anhu now started to live in a little bit comfortably. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had two young daughters, Ruqayyah and Kulthum. His elder daughter Zainab radiallahu anha was married to Abu al-As ibn Rabi. Ruqayyah and Kulthum were, according to some narrations, engaged, and according to another narration, married to two sons of Abu Lahab by the name of Utbah and Utaybah. Ruqayyah was married to Utbah and Kulthum to Utaybah. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam announced his prophethood and messengership, Abu Lahab got angry and he opposed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and his wife Jamil bint Harb ibn Umayyah ibn Abd Shams, who was the sister of Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, she also opposed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they both tried to hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in many ways. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went on Mount Safa and said, "O people, if I were to tell you that an army is waiting on that side about to attack you, will you believe me?" And people said yes. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I am warning you of something worse, and that is the azab of Jahannam. Say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah." So Abu Lahab threw both of his hands, pointing to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, saying, "Tabban laka sa'ir al-yawm, alihaza jama'atana." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the surah, "Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab, ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab." May both of his hands be destroyed, and may he be destroyed. Now, Abu Lahab went and said to his sons Utbah that speaking to you is haram upon me unless you divorce Muhammad's daughters. So Utbah divorced Ruqayyah and Utaybah divorced Kulthum in order to rub salt into the wounds of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was naturally grieved. However, the marriage had not yet been consummated. Only nikah had taken place. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave Ruqayyah to Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu. In fact, in one narration, Usman says, when Ruqayyah was married to Utbah, I internally grieved. And I thought, oh no, I wish Allah had given me Ruqayyah. Because Ruqayyah was very beautiful, and Usman himself was also very beautiful. Usman was of a white complex and good appearance and good build, and his shoulders were broad, and he had hair which had a little bit of curl in there, and he used to keep long hair just below his earlobes, and he was of a good complex, and so he thought that I wish Allah had given me Ruqayyah. And that is what happened. Utbah gave talaq and divorce, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave her to Usman, and they started living happily, and they had great love for one another. Time passes, Muslims are being tortured, persecuted in Makkah Mukarramah, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that there is a servant of Allah in Ethiopia, Habasha, who is kind. So, those of you who wish to go there should migrate. So, in the first hijrah of Habasha, in the year 5 after Nubuwwah, 10 Sahaba and 4 Sahabiyat migrated from Makkah Mukarrama to Habasha. Among them was Usman Ghani and his wife Ruqayya bint Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam radiyallahu anha. They both migrated and they both went and very happily hand in hand, a loving, caring couple. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Usman and Ruqayya are the first couple to migrate together after Ibrahim and Sarah alayhim salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Prophet, and Sarah alayhi salam migrated for the sake of Allah. They both went together. Other prophets migrated but on their own. The first couple to migrate after Ibrahim and Sarah are Usman and Ruqayya. They arrived at Habasha. Ruqayya at that time was expecting and she had a miscarriage in Habasha. And however, they stayed there for some time, 2-3 years passed. And within this time, the news arrives over there that the people of Makkah have embraced Islam. And the whole Makkah has become Muslim. Now this news was false. But the people got this news, a false alarm, that rumor that Makkah has embraced Islam. So these muhajirin who had gone there, they thought that, well, if Makkah has embraced Islam, there is no point in living here, we go back to our homeland. So they return. When they approach, they come near Makkah, they find out that this was a false news. However, they just come into the city of Makkah Mukarramah. And Usman also comes. After some time, some people migrate again. But this second migration, Usman said, no, I might as well stay here now. I don't want to go back to Habasha. So Usman and Ruqayya, they stay over here. And over here, they have a child who is named Abdullah. And Usman Ghani radiyallahu anhu was, previously known with the nickname, kunyat of Abu Amr. But after the birth of their son Abdullah, he is given the nickname of Abu Abdullah. So then he was called Abu Abdullah Usman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. Hazrat Usman lives here until the 3 years, during that Sha'bi Abi Talib. And Usman Ghani radiyallahu anhu gives company to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam along with Ruqayya and other family members to Sha'bi Abi Talib, stays there for 3 years. They come back. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrates to Medina Munawwara and Sahaba also migrate. In fact, Usman and Ruqayya migrate before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they come to Medina Munawwara, settle down over here. As time passes, Usman Ghani radiyallahu anhu is in Medina Munawwara and the battle of Badr takes place. When the Sahaba are going for battle of Badr, Ruqayya is ill over here. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructs Usman that you should not come with us, you should stay home and nurse Ruqayya, take care of her. Who knows what happens? Because her illness was getting worse. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left him behind. While Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was engaged in the battle of Badr, over here Ruqayya's illness, got really worse and she passed away. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was returning, he arrived when Ruqayya was buried. So this happens, and Usman is extremely grieved, he's crying, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam consoles him, and after a few days gives him Kulsum as well. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Usman Ghani radiyallahu anhu is Kulsum. So the second daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes to Usman, and that is why Usman has given the title of Dhun Nurayn, the one with 2 noors, meaning one noor was Ruqayya and the second noor was Kulsum. But namaz ke baad continue karte. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ahmadu wa nusalli ala Rasulihil Kareem. Amma ba'd. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam returned from Battle of Badr and Ruqayya had passed away. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam distributed the booty of Ghazwa Badr, he included Usman in there. And he said, Usman had intended to come, but I told him to stay behind, so I will put his share as well in the booty. Then Usman was quite grieved, and he had his son Abdullah ibn Usman, who was 4 years old at the time, because Abdullah was born 2 years before Hijrah, and Battle of Badr is in the 2nd year after Hijrah. So he was a 4-year-old young child, and Usman was alone. On the other side, it so happened that Sayyiduna Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu's daughter Hafsa bint Umar also became a widow from Khunais ibn Hudhafa as-Sahmi. So Umar radiallahu anhu was looking for a partner for her. So he offered Usman that, do you want to marry my daughter Hafsa? And Usman said, no, at the moment I haven't got over the grief of Ruqayya and I don't want to marry. So he then went on to speak to Abu Bakr Siddiq, and Umar said, do you want to marry my daughter? And Abu Bakr Siddiq kept quiet, he didn't say anything. No, yes, no, no. So Usman was really grieved. Umar radiallahu anhu was very grieved that, you could at least given me an answer. Anyway, after a few days, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam sent a proposal. In fact, in one narration, Umar said to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that, Ya Rasulullah, I offered my daughter Hafsa to Usman, but he refused. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, shall I not offer Hafsa a better husband than Usman, and offer Usman a better wife than Hafsa? And then he said, I will get married to Hafsa and I will give Kulsum to Usman. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam did the aqd of Kulsum to Usman radiallahu anhu. Now Kulsum, the third daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, started living with Usman, and she took care of Abdullah, their son, Hazrat Ruqayya's son. When Abdullah was 6 years old, meaning 2 years later, he was क्या कहते हैं, मुर्ग चोंच मारता है, pricked on his face by a rooster while he was playing, and from that क्या कहते हैं, biting, pricking, his face started swelling up, and he, after a few days, Abdullah passed away. Usman was grieved upon whatever happened. Anyhow, Kulsum and Usman are living together. During this time, some battles take place and Usman participates in them. Ghazwa Uhud comes in between in the year 3 after Hijrah, and Usman radiallahu anhu is there in the battle. However, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had instructed 50 archers on that hill to protect them from Muslimin from behind. They thought that the battle has been won, and they came down, and the mushrikeen came from behind, and the Muslims were caught in between from front and from behind, and they lost the battlefield, and everybody started running away, and Usman also ran away. Now some people who accuse Usman, they say that, look, Usman ran away. Over here Sheikh Mahmoud Shakir says, of course he's bound to run away. If a whole army is fleeing and the other army's enemy is attacking, then can one person stand together on his own? Everybody is running away. So why you pick on Usman alone? And secondly, another reason for Usman fleeing away was, as mentioned by Maulana Saeed Ahmad Akbar Abadi in Usman Zul Nurain, that Sayyiduna Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was grieved because the news spread that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been killed. And many Sahabas, they just threw away their weapons. That Rasulullah is gone, then what is the purpose of this life when he is no longer with us? So Usman was among them. This was the reason why he also threw down his weapons and left the battlefield. Anyhow, this was a mistake. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has pardoned them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَوَلَّوْا مِنْكُمْ يَوْمَ الْتَقَى الْجَمْعَانِ إِنَّمَا اسْتَزَلَّهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ بِبَعْضِ مَا كَسَبُوا وَلَقَدْ عَفَى اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ حَلِيمٌ. When Allah has pardoned them, and then who are we to question and accuse Usman for leaving the battlefield on that day? The battle finished. People followed in Hamra al-Asad. Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was included in them, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said only those people follow in Hamra al-Asad who participated yesterday in the battle of Uhud. A long story, we will cut that short. Anyhow, after that, in next year, in the year 4, Ghazwa Banu Ghatfan takes place. The people of Ghatfan, they used to come and ambush the areas of Medina Munawwara. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went towards them in the year 4. And who did he leave behind as his deputy in Medina Munawwara? he left Usman ibn Affan as his deputy during that time. He was away for over 11 to 12 days, and during those days Hazrat Usman was the caretaker and of Medina Munawwara. Thereafter, the next year, other incidents take place. Bayatul Rizwan happens in the year 6th after Hijrah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam sees a dream that he is going to Makkah Mukarramah. He has performed the tawaf of the house of Allah, and then they are shaving their heads or trimming their hair. He mentions the dream. Sahaba say, let's go. We are missing Makkah Mukarramah. We have been driven out of there for the last 6 years. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes with 1400 Sahaba to Makkah Mukarramah, and they camp in Hudaybiyah. The Mushrikeen stop them from going into Makkah Mukarramah to perform Umrah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells them that we have not come here for a war. We have only come to perform Umrah. Just let us do Tawaf of Baytullah Sharif, do Umrah and go. But they refused. They sent envoys upon envoys, Mikraz ibn Jabir and Urwa ibn Mas'ud Thaqafi and so, and then Suhail ibn Amr and others come. But nothing is happening. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in these few days which they are going through, some mushrikeen even try to attack the Sahaba in Hudaybiyah. 40 of them, or in another version 80 of them, come with weapons to attack, but the Sahaba surround them, hold them, bring them to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam pardons them, lets them off. One person was being sent by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to have a dialogue with the Meccan Mushrikeens, Amr ibn Umayyah. They get hold of him, and they start torturing him. They chop off the legs of the camel on which he was riding. That camel belonged to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They try to kill him, but a Habish, a group among them, they come in between and they say, don't kill him, and they send him away, and he comes back to the Sahaba. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I don't want war, I want someone to go and talk to them and tell them that we have just come for Umrah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, calls upon Umar, and he says, Umar, you go and speak to them. Umar says, Ya Rasulullah, I don't mind, but you know, Quraysh's enmity towards me. If I go, they're going to murder me, and that's definite. And they won't listen to me. So it's no point in sending me. I'll tell you someone who is more respected in the eyes of Quraysh than myself, and that is Usman ibn Affan. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I think that is right. He called Usman. Usman, you go and talk to them. Usman says, okay. So Usman radiallahu anhu goes. Now the people of Makkah welcome him, who Sufyan ibn al-Haris and Abu Sufyan ibn Harb and others. They say, okay, Usman is respected, honorable, let him come, he's a modest person. And he speaks to them. They also calm down, and they say, Usman, while you are here, this is the house of Allah, do tawaf if you want, finish your umrah. And Usman said, no, how can that be possible? How can I do my umrah without Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And he is still in the Ihram in Hudaybiyah and I do my umrah here? This is not possible. I won't do my umrah until he does it. So they said, no, that's not possible. We're not going to let him in. Anyhow, Usman stays there. Over here, someone just spreads rumors that Usman's been killed. Because the incident of Amr ibn Umayyah had happened before. So they say that Usman's been murdered. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also thinks, Acha, is that the case? Oh, if Usman has been murdered, then all talks of negotiation and peace are finished. We will not go from here without the revenge of Usman. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam calls upon the Sahaba, and he says that the news has come, Allah knows best, that Usman has been killed, and if that is the case, then we have to take revenge. Now, I want all of you to give me pledge that you won't run away from the battlefield if a battle does take place. And the Sahaba start coming and giving their bayat, their pledge. And the bayat was ala Allah nafirra, and in some narrations ala al-maut, that we will fight till death. We will die but not run away. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sitting under the shade of a tree. Salama ibn al-Aqwa radiyallahu anhu is holding the branch so that it doesn't touch Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Sahaba come in line, one after the other. They put their hands in the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they give their pledge that, Ya Rasulullah, we give you our bayat and our pledge that we will fight till death and we won't flee. We will take the revenge of Usman. Now, they come one after. How many Sahabas? 1,400. They all give bayat. And while the bayat is being given, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam remembers Usman. And he takes his hand, left hand, puts the right hand over it, and he says, this is the bayat of Usman if he is still alive. So Abdullah ibn Umar says the hand of Rasulullah was better for Usman than his own hands. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam takes bayat. And why was this bayatul Rizwan taken? Because of the news of the murder of Usman. That's how much Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam held Usman, how much dear he held him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took the bayat. The mushrikeen got this news that, oh, there is this bayat taking place. So they say, Bhai Usman ko jaldi bhej do. Send him back quickly. So they calm down. So Usman comes and he says, Ya Rasulullah, they're not prepared to give in. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, but we just want to do Umrah, we won't do anything. Now during this time, Suhail ibn Amr comes. When Suhail ibn Amr is coming to talk, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, took the good omen, a sign from his name. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Suhail is coming, قَدْ سُهِلَ لَكُمْ فِي أَمْرِكُمْ. Inshallah, our matter will be made sahulat and full of ease. Now Suhail arrives and he says, okay, he puts a few conditions, and there's a sulh and peace, negotiations take place. And among that is that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba go back to Medina Munawwara now. You can't enter Makkah now. You go back, you can come back next year and do qaza of your Umrah. And stay for 3 days, and you shouldn't come with any weapons except if they are inside the bags, not open. And after 3 days you have to go back. And if one of you wants to stay in Makkah, you won't stop him. But if any one of us wants to go with you, you will not take him, you will leave him with us. All conditions are accepted. And the Sahaba return. This is how Bayatul Rizwan take place. After that, Sahaba come back. After Bayatul Rizwan, Umratul Qaza, Usman is in there. And then Fath Makkah, and Usman Ghani is in there as well. And in the year 9 after Hijrah, I think it was year 8 or year 9, in which Kulthum also passed away. The second daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, second wife. We mentioned that Usman is given the title Dhun Nurain because both daughters of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are classed as Nur, and Usman is the only person in the whole history to have been married to 2 daughters of a prophet. And that prophet is also Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidul Anbiya wal Mursaleen. No other person had the honor of marrying 2 daughters of a prophet, one after the other. When Kulthum died, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in one hadith that if I had 100 daughters, I would give them to Usman one after the other. Because of the good akhlaq and characteristics and nobility and haya and modesty and sakhawat and generosity of Sayyidina Usman, who was a very good person, very good mannered person. And he was very soft and very gentle. And because of that gentleness, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made this remark. Kulthum passed away. And after that, the time comes of Ghazwa Tabuk, in the year 9 after Hijrah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man yujahhizu jaysh al-usrah falahu al-jannah." Who will prepare the army of hardship, and Jannat is his. So Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in take part in the Chanda collection which is taking place. Sayyiduna Umar Farooq radiyallahu anhu thinks that today I'm going to beat I'm going to beat Abu Bakr Siddiq, and I will take half of everything I own. So whatever dinars he had, whatever dirhams he had, gold coins, silver coins, any other thing that could be of use in the battle, he took half of everything and brought it to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, huge amount, feeling chuffed, and alhamdulillah. Now Abu Bakr Siddiq also comes with something, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam realizes what was inside the heart of Umar. So he asked Umar, what have you brought from home? And Umar said, Ya Rasulullah, I brought half of everything I owned. Only left half for my family, and I bought half for the army. And he asked Abu Bakr, what did you bring? And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I brought everything I had. I have let Allah and Rasul for my family. Then Abu Bakr realized, oh, I can never beat Abu Bakr. This is their contribution. What about Usman's contribution? Because this army is named Jaysh al-Usra. Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu is there. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is giving speech and encouraging. Man yujahizu Jaysh al-Usra falahu al-Jannah. And Usman Ghani stands up and he says, Ya Rasulullah, upon me is 100 camels with the saddles and the robes and the cup and utensil and whatever is needed. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam again says, Man yujahishu Jaysh al-Usra. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I will give 200 camels. And after a while, another 200, another 300, until he pledged 950 camels. And then he pledged 50 to 60 horses. And then he brought a bag of gold coins. And in one narration, there were 1,000 gold coins, and in another narration, 10,000 gold coins. Because Usman was a merchant, a tajir, and he had good skill in doing businesses and deals. So Allah blessed him with wealth. So he gave all that. He offered all those 1,000 camels and horses, and that 1,000 or another 10,000 dinars. When he brought that and put them in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took those coins in his lap and he was tossing and turning them, and he was saying, "Ma dharra Uthman ma amila ba'da hadha al-yawm." If Usman does not do any good deed after today, it won't harm him. Today he has done such a great deed that he will definitely be admitted into Jannah. This is enough to take him into Jannah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in other words, he is giving glad tidings to Usman radiallahu anhu. Also among the contributions of Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu is the tawsi' of Masjid Nabawi Sharif, extension. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that Masjid Nabawi is getting smaller and space is tight. Who will buy the land adjacent to it and include it in the masjid? Usman Ghani stood up, Rasulullah will buy. He purchased it and he made it waqf for Masjid Nabawi Sharif. When the people of the migrants, Muhajirin, came to Medina Munawwara, there was in Medina Munawwara only one well which had proper sweet water, and that was owned by a Jew, and he used to charge people 1 dirham for every bucket. So he used to make good money out of it. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam made an announcement, "Man yashtari bir Ruma, fayaj'alu dalwahu fi dila'il muslimin." Who will buy the well of Ruma and he will include his bucket among the other buckets of the Muslimin. So Usman said, Ya Rasulullah, I will do it. Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu went to the Jew and he said, I want to buy your well. And he said, no, my well is very profitable, I'm not going to sell it. Usman said, no, you have to sell it. Name a price. He said, no, I'm not going to sell it at any price. Then Usman insisted and he said, the Jew said, okay, I will sell you half of my well. What do you mean half? He said, one day you own it and the other day, next day I own it. And I will charge you 35,000 dirhams. Usman said, 35,000? He said, yes. Usman said, okay. The deal was done. He paid him 35,000. And then Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Rasulullah, this is the deal. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no problem. The Muslims can go to the well on the day of Usman and draw water for 2 days. So that is what the Muslims used to do. They would take enough water which would be of use for 2 days. So next day nobody would go to buy water from there. So the Jew said, oh, tune mera kuआं kharab kar diya. You ruined my business. So he said, okay, now you buy all of it. And you have to pay me so much. Usman said, okay. He paid him that amount and he bought the whole well and he made it waqf. And people survived on the, used to use that sweet water. Today, that well is named Bir Usman, and there is a bagh and garden in there as well. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to drink from there. And Alhamdulillah, we went and we also drank from there. In the last Hajj, we went there, and normally it's closed. But our driver, he said, we will sneak in somehow. And he took us inside. And Alhamdulillah, he said, there's a big pump, huge pump over there now. You can see the well by lifting some tin over, and underneath you can see it. However, there's a pump, and the pump draws water. From that water, they use it for the bagh, to water the trees. So we drank from there as well, Alhamdulillah. So this is Bide Usman and Hazrat Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu's contributions to the Muslims. And for these reasons, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam knew that Usman is a good person, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave him many glad tidings and basharat of Jannah. For example, once in one majlis he mentioned the Ashara Mubashara, who were given the good news of Jannah in this dunya. He mentioned Usman in there. Abu Bakr fil Jannah, Umar fil Jannah, Usman fil Jannah. In one narration, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was on a mountain. In some narrations, the mountain's name is Thabir. In another narration, is narrated regarding Uhud. And the mountain started shaking. And when the mountain shakes, the stones start rumbling down. And whoever is on that mountain is at risk, threat. So the mountain started shaking, and the stones start rumbling. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stamped his foot on the mountain and said, "Uskun, فَإِنَّمَا عَلَيْكَ نَبِيٌّ أَوْ صِدِّيقٌ أَوْ شَهِيدًا." Calm down. Upon you is a prophet or a Siddiq or two Shaheeds. And with him were Abu Bakr, Umar and Usman. So Abu Bakr was Siddiq and Umar and Usman were the Shaheed. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam indicated towards that. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu says, I was once in the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in one bagh. So someone knocked on the gate, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Oh, let him in and give him good news of Jannah." So he opened the door, and there was Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu who came inside, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting on the wall surrounding a well while lowering his blessed feet and legs inside the well. So Abu Bakr came and sat by his side. Then someone else knocked the door, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Abu Musa, let him in and give him good news of Jannah." He opened the door, and there was Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. He came and sat on the left of Abu Bakr of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while he also lowered his legs and feet inside the well. And then a third person knocked on the door, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Let him in and give him good news of Jannah with some problems, calamities which will befall him." He opened the door, and there was Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu. When he came, he couldn't sit by their side, so he sat on the opposite of facing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sa'id ibn Musayyib says, I took the meaning of this to be their graves, because Rasulullah, Abu Bakr and Umar are buried together, and Usman is at a distance. So Rasulullah gave him good news of Jannah over here. In many hadiths, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in one hadith, لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ رَفِيقٌ وَرَفِيقِي فِي الْجَنَّةِ عُثْمَانُ بْنُ عَفَّانَ. Every prophet has a rafiq companion, and my companion in Jannah will be Usman. Of course, Quran says, جَنَّاتُ عَدْنٍ يَدْخُلُونَهَا وَمَنْ صَلَحَ مِنْ آبَائِهِمْ وَأَزْوَاجِهِمْ وَذُرِّيَّاتِهِمْ وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ يَدْخُلُونَ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ كُلِّ بَابٍ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِمَا صَبَرْتُمْ فَنِعْمَ عُقْبَى الدَّارِ. A person will go in Jannah along with his wives, along with his family, wife or wives. Usman Ghani had two wives. They were both daughters of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when Rasulullah goes in Jannah, his two daughters will be in Jannah. So do you think Usman is not going to be there? Of course Usman is going to be there as well. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that is why Usman is my rafiq and my close companion in Jannah. In spite of this, people talk bad about Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu. Like they said about Umar, they say Usman was a traitor too, and he only did what he did in order to gain khilafah and successorship after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and get hold of all the wealth of the state. Whereas Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was a very modest person. He was so rich, and in spite of that, Sahaba say that I saw him wearing clothes which were not worth more than 5 dirhams. One Sahabi says that he saw Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu sleeping in the masjid like an ordinary person. He was lying down inside the masjid. And he said, this is Ameerul Momineen. So he has so rich, but his food was very minimal and normal, general food. He never used to eat, extravagant food. And his ibadat and worship was immense. At night he would sleep very little in the beginning portion of the night, and then he would get up and start his tahajjud salah and spend the night in ibadat and in tahajjud salah. And he would say, in business, the best business is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because any business and transaction done with Allah can never fail. It will always be profitable. So people, you should do your business and transaction with trade with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Give to Him. Whatever you give in the path of Allah, Allah will reward you for it. So Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu, such worshipper and also such a humble person. Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu would often cry upon the mentioning of the qabr, grave. And he would weep so bitterly that his whole beard would become wet due to the tears flowing from his eyes. People would ask him that you don't cry so much upon the mentioning of Jahannam and Azhab of Jahannam. Why do you cry so much upon the mentioning of Qabr and the grave? And he would say, I have heard Rasulullah say that Qabr is the first station from the stations of Jannah. Whosoever passes this station successfully will pass the other stations successfully as well. And whosoever is stuck over here will get stuck in other places as well. And he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, Al-qabru imma rawdatun min riyad al-jannah aw hufratun min hufar al-niran. Qabr is either a garden from the gardens of Jannah or a pit from the pits of Jahannam. So Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was a very humble person. Hazrat Shaykh Naballah Umar narrates in Tariq Mashayikh Chist that sometimes Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu would pass by a place called Hush Kawkab. This was at a little bit of distance from Baqiul Gharqad. Now Baqiul Gharqad was a small graveyard over here, and there was at a distance there was this place which was empty. There were a few trees and bushes over there. He would pass by over there, he would stand and he would say that soon a pious man is going to be buried over here. I can feel, maybe he felt some khushbu, some scent of that mitti where this was going to take place. Hazrat Shaykh Rahmatullah narrates that it so happened that Usman himself was buried over there. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the news beforehand that this is the place where you're going to be buried. Sayyidina Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was very sahib-e kashaf. Kashaf means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens things up before him, manifestations. So once he is sitting and someone comes inside the majlis and that person has passed by the markets and he has gazed unlawfully with lust at some woman, and then he comes inside the majlis of Usman. People come and go and come and go. So Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu after a while says, how is it that people come to our majlis while their eyes have fornicated, committed zina? So people is like, oh, shocked that Usman Ghani has realized that someone has been doing zina with the eyes. So someone asked a question, oh Usman, does wahi and revelation come down after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He's gone. So this wahi come down? And he said, no, this is firasatul mu'min. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ittaqu firasatul mu'min fa innahu yanzuru bi nurillah. Beware of the firasat and the foresight of a mu'min, a true believer, because he sees with the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah said, inna fi dhalika la ayatin lil mutawassimin. There are signs in there for those who ponder and who look deeply. So Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was of a very high caliber. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had given him the good news of Jannah. So Sayyiduna in one place बस ये हदीस तो मैंने सुना दी है. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam once told him that Usman, لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ يُقَمِّسُكَ قَمِيصًا. It is possible that Allah will give you a shirt, a qamis to wear. فَإِنْ أَرَادُوكَ عَلَى خَلْعِهِ فَلَا تَخْلَعْهُ لَهُ. If people force you to take it off, then don't take it off. This was indication towards Khilafat, the qamis of Khilafat. When Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu was made Khalifa, which we will come on to later, he narrated this hadith. And he said, Rasulullah has told me, and he said, don't take it off, so I'm not going to take it off. And I'm going to be patient on whatever happens. And Sayyiduna Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu, after the, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, after Ghazwa Tabuk, Sayyiduna Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu participated in Hajjatul Wada', the farewell Hajj of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And after 3 months, after Hajjatul Wada', when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam passed away, the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in were extremely grieved. And Usman was among them. One of those whose minds were just boggled, who were speechless, who couldn't say a word. In fact, 3 days after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Usman was one, sitting. He is doing his work, he is praying his namaz, eating, whatever. But his mind is not all there. So he is sitting, and Umar radiallahu anhu passes by, and he says, Assalamu alaikum. And Usman doesn't reply. So Umar radiallahu anhu was going to Abu Bakr, and he said to Abu Bakr, what has happened with Usman, something wrong? I did salam to him and he did not give answer. So Abu Bakr calls him over, and he says, Usman, your brother Umar did salam to you, why did you not reply? And he said, when did you do salam? I never heard anything. And Abu Bakr said, he's still not overcome the grief of separation from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Usman radiallahu anhu was among them. Now Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu calms him down. Usman says, I wish I had asked one question to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What is the thing, what is the deed that can take a person into Jannah? And Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu said, I have asked that question to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he replied that it is the same kalima which I offered to my uncle Abu Talib, and he refused. Whoever has that kalima, then this kalima will take him into Jannah. So Usman Ghani radiallahu anhu is deeply thinking about it, and all these matters, grieved. Now when he comes to his senses, things take place. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu is the Khalifa. He is taking care of things. He makes a committee of mashwara, from whom he consults in important matters. Among that committee is Sayyidina Usman radiallahu anhu. In many times Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu will make mashwara with him. In fact, after Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, when he is close to death, he wants to make mashwara. He makes mashwara with Ali karramallahu wajhahu. I intend to appoint Umar as my Khalifa. What is your opinion? And Ali says he's the best man for the job. He asks Hazrat Usman radiallahu anhu that I intend to appoint Umar as my Khalifa. What do you say? And Usman says, Umar's batin is much more better than his zahir. His internal state is much more better than his outer state. Meaning, Umar may look a bit strict, but internally he is very soft. So, you should appoint him. So Abu Bakr said, if you had given another answer, I would have listened to you, but thank you very much, and I will appoint him. And he called Usman to write down that note of Khilafat for him. Okay?